Body language is powerful in the way you present yourself. It doesn't let the opposition see that you're beaten. It can be inspirational. All those little things make a big difference. Don't think about just being a New Zealand player. Think about being the best bowler in the world. I was playing against these players who I'd watched on TV for years. You get one of them out in front of 50,000 people. You have to have that ability to look in the mirror and go, what am I really like as a player? Where am I really good? Where am I not? And how am I then going to go about making myself better? In cricket, you fail often more than you succeed. When I was at the peak of my powers, I knew the game was easy then because I thought, today I'm going to have success. I'm dealing with some of the best players in the world. You have to present yourself with an air of confidence. If you don't, they won't respect you.
My name is Kyla Colbin. You're listening to my interview with Shane Bond, and this is the Hunger and Heart Podcast. Enjoy the show. Hello, my name is Kyla Colbin, and welcome to episode 32 of Hunger and Heart, a podcast on the intersection of wild ambition and fierce compassion. My guest today is Shane Bond. Shane is a legend of New Zealand cricket, widely accepted as one of the greatest fast bowlers of his era. Currently has the second best bowling strike rate of all time in Test match cricket. He played for the New Zealand Black Caps in Test, One-Day International, and T20. His fastest recorded delivery was against India in the 2003 World Cup, a blistering 156.4 kilometers per hour. To this day, he is the fastest New Zealander to take 100 wickets in One-Day Internationals, achieving that feat in just 54 matches. In this conversation, we talk about the difference between playing to win and playing not to lose, how his training as a cop helped him cope with the pressure of international cricket, and why one of his goals as a coach is not to go harder, but to soften. So, here you are, my conversation with Shane Bond. Well, we'll dig into it. It's probably useful for me to tell you that my ignorance about cricket knows no bounds.
Yeah, that's fine.
Like, you are talking to probably the least. And in fact, if I could, I've got some questions for you that are just really basic, if you would indulge me. Okay.
100%.
So I understand your record is extraordinary. 18 test matches, 87 wickets, average 22.09, strike rate of 38.7. Okay. So the 18 test matches I get, 87 wickets I get. That means you bowled and you knocked the other person out.
Yep.
Average 22.09. Is that the average number of runs per wicket?
That's right.
Or is that the strike rate? Okay, that's the average number of runs.
That's average. Yep.
Okay, I told you, my ignorance knows no bounds.
Yeah, I like it.
You're starting to see now. What is the strike rate? What does that mean?
So that's how many balls per wicket. So it took me 38 balls for every wicket that I bowled. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So number of runs versus number of balls. I see. Got it.
Yes.
And are you the only bowler in the modern era to have a strike rate under 40? Is that true?
Yeah, I probably didn't play enough. I think so, but yeah, there's a couple in low 40s, but as I said, to be fair, I didn't play as many games then. I spent more time on the sideline than I did in the middle. So yeah, through injuries.
My understanding is that, widely regarded as one of the best bowlers of your era, and that injuries was really the thing that, the thing that held your career back from being more extensive than it was. But the impact that you had during your career was obviously substantial. I wonder if we could start at the beginning. Like, how did you?
Of course.
Yeah, give me some backstory.
Yeah, I moved to Wellington. My parents moved to Wellington for work. I was a pretty full-on child. Some would say a bit crazy, actually. I think my mother talked to me now about food colouring was a bit of an issue, but I nearly got expelled from play centre or kindergarten because I was super active and pretty hard work. And then I think I just saw cricket on TV and decided that I'd give it a go. And Mum couldn't work out why the sort of the most active kid in the world wanted to play the most boring sport in the world, is how she, I think, described it. And so I went down to the local park in Wellington, and Mum always just said I could just bowl. It sort of just came naturally to me. And yeah, it was always bowling, and I always loved it. And yeah, even though you're a typical Kiwi kid where you play football and then rugby later on, cricket was always the passion. Yeah, we moved back to Christchurch. My mum got cancer. We moved back to Christchurch, settled in Belfast. I still live in Belfast. And yeah, everything sort of just happened from there. I went to Papanui High, just a state school, have extraordinary friends out at school, loved it. And yeah, I gave up what I thought was going to be a cricket career to be a policeman. And then cricket sort of took over after I actually had a real job. So it was sort of a little bit arse about face how it turned out, but I'm lucky I'm still in the game. It's still providing me a living. I'm coaching now, and yeah, I'm very, very fortunate.
Amazing. I've got questions on all of it. My first question is your mother still with us?
She is. Yep, yep. My parents are split up, but my mother's with me. She's just been to Italy or Europe for the first time. Came with me over there, took her around Italy, which was fantastic. So yeah, she's still a huge supporter of mine. Obviously, and my two of my kids play sport, and she's at every game. So one thing I do remember as a kid, you do remember those things that your parents were at every sporting game. You know, it did make a big difference, and Mum's still doing it now. Yeah.
I love, even though she thought it was the most boring game. Do you know what it reminds me of when I hear that your mother said that? Bill Bryson, who does not do cricket any favors, in his book, he describes cricket as the only sport where the spectators burn as many calories as the participants, more if they're slightly restless.
Yeah, I think maybe I can tell you from a bowling perspective, I burned a few calories. Yeah, it wasn't easy, and obviously I'm in the T20 now, which is pretty high tempo, and it's pretty hot in India when I'm coaching and the boys are playing over there. But yeah, I think my mum loves cricket. Like, she's always been an ardent fan of cricket and always watched it. It's just, I think she was sort of just being a little bit ironical with the way I was as a child with the tempo of the game at the time.
Look, I've never met your mom, but I would hazard a guess that what she loves is you.
Yeah, she's a hard case, my mum. Yeah, she certainly does.
That's awesome. All right. So you mentioned you got a day job, policeman. And then how did you end up international cricket superstar?
Yeah, I had a lot of injuries. I would describe myself as pretty lazy when I was younger. I just didn't have that motivation to go out and train, to do the hard yards that was necessary, and so I had some back problems and injuries. I sort of, like probably a couple of my kids now, you come out of school not really knowing what to do. I did phys ed teaching for a year, didn't really want to be a teacher. I worked as a storeman for a year and a half. I went to the cricket academy. I got in there. I played a little bit of cricket. And in the end, it was sort of time where I thought, look, I've got to get a real job. And I'd always wanted to be a cop as a kid. And I thought I'd play cricket and then I'd pursue a career afterwards, because cricket was fully amateur. So in the end, I did a year at Lincoln, and while I was doing property, because I like property too. And after I finished my first year, I got accepted. I was doing my application for the police. And it was like, well, do I keep going? And my now wife and I decided we'd go to England and see if we were sort of suited for each other by getting out of house and home and going over the other side of the world and spending 6 months together while I played cricket. And we did that. And I came back, and as I came back, I got accepted into the police force. And so I went in, and what I did is my training was over the summer, and I really missed the game. I realized, geez, I wasn't injured, so I really wanted to play. So once I finished my training, I decided and please have decent holidays. So I just banked up all my holidays to play the following summer. And because I had no pressure of injuries or work, I thought, you know what, now that I play, I'm just going to go hard. So I did a little bit of training, not too much, but I suppose it was an attitude with my bowling where I'm just going to try and bowl really fast. And yeah, for whatever reason I did. And I managed to play a little bit of domestic cricket for my local province, and we had some sort of success, and that gave me a little bit more confidence. And then the following year, I got picked on the back of an injury, ironically, to go to India as part of New Zealand A, because I was one of the fastest in the country, and went on that tour and had a great tour, and more people got injured, and I got springboarded into the national team. And all of a sudden, my sort of couple of years in the police ended up being leave without pay, and I never went back. So it was weird.
Okay, I have a lot of questions here. So one of my first questions is, again, there might be people listening who also do not know much about cricket. When you say bowling fast, I understand your record is 100, is it 156 kilometers an hour?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, when you bowl fast, like, is it the faster you bowl, is it just straight up like the more likely you are to take a wicket? Is that just how it goes?
Not I suppose like there was a couple of guys. So that's what 9 miles per hour or something, 98.
It's
There's been
wild.
three. Yeah, there's been three guys I think who have, or maybe four all time who have clocked 100. And I think there's not many. For me, it was just a point of difference. There just hadn't been anyone, especially from New Zealand, who had bowled that fast. And I didn't know how fast I was bowling. I'd never been on a speed gun before until I played my first match for New Zealand. And then I saw, and so for the next month or two when I was on at the ground playing for New Zealand, all I was doing was looking at the scoreboard, trying to go faster and faster and faster. It was sort of weird. And I think that's what sort of captivated people was that, oh, okay, we've got this bowler now who offers something as a point of difference. And there was a couple of other guys around the world who were bowling really fast and trying to break this magical 100-mile-an-hour sort of barrier. So, yeah, that was the big one, is that the New Zealand just had just wanted someone who was a little bit different, and it just happened to be me. So, yeah, I think that's how I got my opportunity. And then that was my job, was to come in and try and bowl flat out. I suppose that contributed a little bit to my injuries, but when I played, I seemed to make an impact, which was fun.
And I understand you came in, so you come into representing your nation on the world stage, and you're on leave from being a policeman. And then at some point you go, maybe there's something more for me here. And I understand, was it Chris Cairns you had a conversation with? Like, how did that unfold?
Yeah, for me, it was when I first, because when I debuted against arguably the best team ever. Like that's how good they were. They were thrashing everybody, and I knew I was a little bit out of my depth. So it was almost survival. I just wanted to get a wicket, I suppose, for any bowlers. I just wanted to get someone out and have that I was recorded that I had a wicket for my country. And I didn't think I was going to be there very long. I played a couple of the 5-day games in Australia, and it was pretty average. Sort of competed. The results weren't great, but I competed. And I thought, oh, actually, considering I'm a sort of a part-time cricketer against the best team ever, I'm going okay. And then I came back and went back over to Australia, and we played a series against the two best teams in the world, and I got the player of the series. So, and Chris Cairns said to me, and I never really thought about it, all he said to me was, look, these two teams are great teams. You just have an attitude of coming really hard at them. So just don't back off, present yourself with body language, which is sort of what you got to do in the cops, is sort of bluff your way through it. So I sort of knew what he was talking about. And then when I had a little bit of luck and success, he sort of said, look, don't think about just being a New Zealand player. Think about being the best New Zealand player, or think about being the best bowler in the world. And I hadn't really thought about that. I hadn't really thought that cricket would be a career. I thought it was just going to be, I'm here till I get dropped. And after that series, I sort of reset the goals and thought, well, you know what, why not? I'll sit down and write a plan. And that's what I did. I wrote a plan to try and be the best player in the world. And then all the work that I hadn't done as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, then I set about doing. And I got some people around me who were prepared to help, and I got out and I did all that hard work, and that enabled me to play as a professional for the next 9 years.
What was Chris's role?
So he was
Or
probably
who was
the best
Chris
player.
to you?
Chris was a friend of mine. He was the best player in New Zealand. Basically, he was a world-class player who I had a lot of respect for. He was the sort of player you'd take the field with, and he gave you confidence because I've got this guy on my team. And so when he said that, it like holds great value. And I suppose when you move into coaching or as a player, then you realize the impact of words, and someone who you respect giving you a boost and a bit of a kick in the bum at the same time was, yeah, okay. And then I suppose it's up to you to then try and go and do something about it. But it just changed my whole mindset. And that was the biggest thing. It was a change of mindset for me that, okay, I'll try and make cricket as a career. And you need a little bit of luck, and things went well for me. And then I always tell my kids now, because obviously I'm a coach with kids playing sport, is you have to have that ability to look in the mirror and go, look, what am I really like as a player? Where am I really good? Where am I not? And how am I then going to go about making myself better? And that's what I did. And I said that was a huge difference for me.
I have so many questions for you. I want to come back to this thing. You said, words matter, something you see more and more now that you're coaching. But I also heard you say that advice that you got from Chris around body language. And this is something that's really fascinating to me. So when I was at uni, I had a job at a local pub as a bouncer. And the pub owner, she was this super wide, like you're making this face, which understandable, right? Because you'd go, who hires an 18-year-old girl as a bouncer? Because our mental picture of bouncer is it's the big beefy guy who's going to be able to throw
Yep.
down. And the pub was owned by this woman. She was super wise. And what she said to me was, she was like, here's your stool. You're parked right next to the door. When someone comes up to the door, what you do is you get up off the stool and you stand in the middle of the door. And she goes, very few people will push past you to get in if they don't belong inside. And if they push past you to get in, we're calling the cops. Like, we don't want a bouncer who's going to give a message that this is a place where we're going to get into fights. So she was super wise in that regard. And she was one of the first people, later I became a boxer and all sorts of stuff with like how I hold my body and how I walk and everything. But she gave me that insight. And a few years ago, when I first got involved with the Crusaders, my very first conversation with Sam Whitelock, we were talking about exactly this thing. And he was talking about how because he's a big guy, if he approaches the ref straight on, it could be intimidating. And so he'll stand sideways and he'll spread his legs a little bit to lower his height a tiny bit. And I feel like this thing of like understanding our body language, how our bodies move in space, is something that is so rarely taught. And for you to get that insight from Chris, what a gift at that early stage in your career.
I think even as a coach now, when I talk to my son, is I go, when you're playing a team sport, and cricket it's a team sport, but the focus is always on you as an individual as the bowler. It's just you with the ball in hand coming up against the two batsmen. And so if your body language is poor or you look like you're beaten, it impacts the whole team. And so I always try to give the impression that it didn't matter how hard the situation was or how badly I was going, I was always running in and presenting like I was just in the fight, because to me that's inspiring. It inspires teammates, and it only takes one ball to turn a game, and then everyone gets up. And they're the sort of things I talk to my kids and my bowlers about now is, body language is powerful. And the way you present yourself, how you hold yourself, it can be inspirational. It doesn't let the opposition see that you're beaten. All those little things make a big difference. And yeah, it's I suppose that was the beauty of the cops, was you were walking into these incredibly challenging situations that you couldn't run away from. You had to deal with them, and they're far more serious than a game of cricket. You're talking life and death. It's just horrible stuff. And you sort of learnt to present yourself in a way that, even though you were panicking at times and had no idea what you were doing, you could get through it just through your body language and the way you reacted to people and the situation. And that was a huge help for me going into professional sport.
I would imagine, I'm going to make up a story here. Please correct me if I've got it wrong. I would imagine in a policeman situation that in addition to projecting confidence, it would be vital to project calm. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say, and I think there are different styles of policemen. There are certainly cops who like to get physical, like they'd get physical pretty early with people, and that wasn't me. I was more I'm a talker, so I don't really want to get into a scrap. I just wanted to talk to people, try and relate to them. So that's why, yes, in the end, I suppose, why I'm going down the coaching line, I think I can relate to people, and so you're trying to. There's that air of confidence with police without that feeling of you want to get into a confrontation with them or a fight with them. And it's no different now. Even in coaching, I'm dealing with some of the best players in the world. You have to get up and present yourself with an air of confidence, because if you don't, and you're not capable, they won't respect you. So, and the way you present yourself and talk is really important as well. Yeah, it was, as I said, you were dealing with situations that were far more serious than sport. So when I was standing in Australia on the boundary and copping abuse, it was like, this is quite funny because I'm sort of used to this every other weekend in the centre of town. So I was water off a duck's back.
Interesting. So okay, what I'm hearing you say there is your stint as a policeman prepared you for some of the pressures that you would experience later as an international cricketer. And I think this is really interesting because this conversation about body language to me is just one of the many, many indicators or pieces of evidence. Like the thing that's fascinating to me about that conversation is that it's not technical tactical. It is all about our energy and our vibe and the signals that we're giving and the way that other people respond to those signals. And in a cricket environment, your body language, you're going to want to come out with a like have not only confidence but some dominion over this situation. And in a police environment, I have confidence, but I also have calm. And in your case, I'm glad to hear you were the kind of policeman who'd go, actually, can we talk? Can we de-escalate this situation? I want to come back to, like, we can go down. There's so many rabbit holes we can go down in this conversation. I can tell already. We could talk for hours.
There
We
are.
won't, but I could tell we would. I want to come back to Chris telling you could be the best cricketer in New Zealand, or you could be the best bowler in the world. And the thing I'm curious about with that is, I hear you say, your day job as a policeman, you come in and I just want to see how fast, like how fast can I do this? Like
That was it. Yeah.
that's it, right? This is like you're at the amusement park with the hammer thing or the punching bag or whatever.
100%.
And then Chris goes, you could be the best in New Zealand. And you go, oh, there's a shift here. Now I'm like, oh, now I'm dialed in. And my curiosity there, and I think your experience coaching young people now, as well as at the elite level, will also have some bearing on this question. My curiosity there is, again, I've formed a hypothesis, made up a story based on nothing, my own fantasy imagination, that the freedom you had, the physical freedom of going, I just want to see how fast I can go, allowed you to perform in such a way that when Chris said that to you, number one, you already had enough experience, even though it wasn't a lot of experience, but you had enough experience to go, oh, no, that is possible. That is something that I could see. And then having had that freedom allowed you to have that experience in a way that demonstrated what you were capable of before going into okay, now I have to be like regimented and serious and all the things. Is that complete bollocks, or is that consistent with your actual experience?
I think there's a couple parts to it. One, my job was to bowl quick, and that's really all I had. So that's what I did. And the ball moved around a little bit, but I tried to bowl fast and just keep bowling fast. The second part is, I think anyone who comes into any environment, whether a sport, business, you just want to feel like you belong. And so when you come to sport, you're looking for that performance where you go, okay, now I'm not just making up the numbers. I'm part of the team here, and I'm a worthy part of the team. I think that's, even though that might be not the way to think, I think a lot of players do whenever they make a representative team. And no doubt when you make your national team, it's, you just have that, sometimes it's like imposter syndrome. What am I doing here? And there's a little bit of that for me. I was fortunate, as I said, my first 3 or 4 games went okay. That series, obviously, I was playing the best 2 teams in the world, and things after 4 games had gone pretty well. And then in the 5th game, I just had a blinder. Not trying to do anything different. But the scoreboard, the speed thing, that clicked over for the first time in this game over 150, which was like a magical barrier that people started talking about. But at the same time, I got out some of the best players in the world. And so my thinking when I was playing these teams was, oh, please don't screw up, or don't do this. And the whole train of thought changed to, actually, no, I'm now going to do this. So it almost flipped from a positive to a negative. So you had the combination of just a really simple plan to a mindset of, no, this is what I'm going to do. And that confidence came through. And it was the combination of both that, I suppose, then springboarded me to resetting those goals and doing the things that I wanted to do.
Can I reflect back what I'm hearing, make sure I'm understanding? What I heard you say is, when you first joined the team, you're like, don't screw it up, don't screw it up. Like, I'm just here. I don't want to be just here making up the numbers. I want to be good for the team. And then you had that moment in your 5th game where you bowled faster than 150 kilometers an hour. And you went, oh, actually, instead of focusing on not screwing it up, I could focus on achieving something, like this shift towards a positive outcome. Have I understood that correctly?
Exactly. It was one ball. I got a guy called Adam Gilchrist out, who was one of the best players in the world, opening batter, and I bowled him a ball that basically was a Yorker, would have hit where his toes were. He got out of the way, it knocked his stumps over. And it was one of those, when I was playing against these players who I'd watched on TV for years, and then you get one of them out in front of 50,000 people, I think it was on Australia Day, of all days, and silence the crowd. It was just that moment where you go, wow, I can actually do this. It was like the flick of a switch. And then
Now you're 10
I had
foot tall and bulletproof.
I was 10 foot tall. I had 2 wickets beforehand. I've got 3. It's like, wow, I'm on fire here. And my whole train of thought just switched like that. Like, oh no, I'm ready. I'm on. And it sort of just carried forward really. And then all the work that I put in after that, I've always talked to my kids. It's not about talent. It's about effort and hard work. So everybody, as they want to progress in their sport, everyone's talented. You've got to work for it and just keep working for it. And I suppose that's where I got my confidence from after that, was I knew I could do it. And then the level of work I put in just sort of intensified that. So every time I took the field for New Zealand, I was always confident. Success wasn't a surprise. It was something I expected and something that I'd worked for.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna come back to that. One of the things that I find really delightful about this podcast, as well as the work that I do with the Crusaders, is when parallels come through. Because Shane might have one story, but when I hear a similar overarching message from Shane and then from 3, 4, 5, 10 other people, I go, there's something here that's really important. And the parallel that I just heard from you is something that I've heard from Robbie Deans, who talks about chasing opportunity. And he talks about defending the Ranfurly Shield against Counties Manukau. And in the beginning of the game, he had a kick from like directly in front of the post and missed it. And he was just worried about missing, like before he took the kick, he was just worried about missing it. And he said at the end of the game, he had the opportunity to kick again to win to draw the game, which would mean retaining the shield. And he saw a picture of himself afterwards and how like delighted he was to have that opportunity to achieve something. That shift that he talked about is the same what I'm hearing from you, of like, actually, if we're coming into these kind of environments going, I better not mess up, I better be careful, I better be cautious, oh gosh, I just need to do the, versus the joy that I hear from you of going, actually, how fast can I go? And oh, I got Gilchrist out. Let's go. Now we're here to play, and now we're here to party. And then all of a sudden, we just talked about body language, that freedom that gives you to allow your body to do the things it's capable of. Such a gift,
Yeah.
that's the next level.
And that's the thing. I mean, as I say, when you've got 2 kids who are, one's in hockey and one's in cricket, my sport, is you're trying to, one of the things I learned from my coaching and my best coaches, they were challenging, but they were positive. So they're pushing you to improve your skills, but you had to feel, like it was just never about failure or you shouldn't do this or can't get out. And you notice that now as a parent too, because obviously you stand on the sidelines and you hear the stuff and you're like, oh my God. And so for me, it's about going, failure, you're going to fail. It's part of sport. It's okay. But what you don't want to do is fear the moment. You want to be in the moment. So whereas I sometimes hear my mum when my daughter takes a penalty shootout, oh my God, how horrible. I'm like, no, what's the worst can happen? You can miss a shot. What's the best thing can happen? You nail it. And how good is that? So it's that whole different mindset. And that's what you're trying to do as a coach is go, the one thing when people ask about a reflection on a career is, would you do anything different? It was like, no, but the only thing what was I so worried about? There's always everything to gain. No one's going to remember this game or that game, but there was just so much to grab. So that's why you're trying to still in as a coach and people, because they've had success as a player, they often have this little box of safety, and I'm always trying to nudge them out of it. Try this, see what happens, because how exciting is it if it comes off? Whereas there, you sometimes get, oh, I don't want to try that because what if it goes wrong? There's a natural inclination to move towards the negative, the worst case scenario, whereas I'm trying to bump people to, no, try this, it's okay. It doesn't matter, I've got your back. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work, but what happens if it works? How cool's that?
It's such an interesting shift. When I think about courage is defined by risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure, right? Like if there's no risk, there's no uncertainty, there's no emotional exposure, there's no such thing as courage, right? And I think one of the reasons that sport, and particularly sport at an elite level, where you publicly win or lose, you publicly succeed or fail, is there's a piece there of, if I give it my all and I don't win, then I've done the best I can. But there's also a piece there that is, if I give it my all and I don't win, I've confirmed that my all was insufficient.
Mm.
And so I'm curious about how you navigate that tension of, encouraging, or either when you were a player or now as a coach, this, like, I've heard that tennis players who have been told their whole lives how good they are and who've been winning their whole lives, if they get to a point where it looks like they're going to lose a game, they will throw the game so as not to confirm that there's a situation where they can't cut it. And so I'm curious about that tension and your experience with it.
That's a great question. Yeah, I look at my, I suppose I look at my son. How do you measure success and failure? I think you have to be realistic that there are just players who are better than you. I mean, I played plenty of players who I thought were way better than me, but that doesn't mean I can't have a measure of success. Like body language, attitudes, the things I can control, I can certainly do that. I'll talk about my son who's 17 and he's a batter. He's trying to be a batter. I'm going to him, it's easy to measure yourself on outcome. Like, so it's just purely, did I get runs or did I get out? I try to say you're going to get out. It's the nature of the sport. It's what you want to do is be really clear about how you want to play. And then did you play how you wanted to play? And if you did, then just be happy with that. So you're never just bouncing this emotional roller coaster of I didn't get runs or I did get runs. Is you may fail every day, but if you did exactly what you wanted to do and you practiced how you were going to do that and you failed, then you fail. But I also believe that, I say to them, I also believe it will turn around. That because in cricket you fail often more than you succeed. The difference between the great players and the not so is when they have a good day, they have a great day. They don't get 30, they get 100. And so that's all it is. They're failing as much. They just, they go through the same struggles. They have the same doubts. But what you can't do is just go out and bluster over it by just, I'm going to swing the bat. It's just have a really simple plan and just train that and then go and do that. And that's all you have to do. And then it just takes away that emotion, I suppose, of the outcome. Yeah, and in my own mind, I had these goals and I had these things, and I knew when I was on song. So when I was at the peak of my powers, I knew, and the game was easy then because I thought today I'm going to have success, and it sort of flowed. When you weren't quite at the top of your game, that's where I relied on my body language. It was like, I know I'm not bowling that well, so I'm going to run in hard. I'm going to present with strong body language, and I know it can all click into gear, but it's not going to if I drop my bundle and I give up. So that's sort of, I suppose you lean on those sort of things as a coach now, is that positive attitude, that just keep things simple, be positive. It's okay to fail as long as you're reflecting on it and then back yourself the next game. It doesn't matter what happened in the game before, just go out and do the same thing again and try and execute the game plan that you have.
I love this, this premise of failing or of not getting the outcomes that you want, right? Which I think is different to failing, although some people would probably define it that way. And of course, in any elite sport, well, not any, but in most elite sports, you're losing more than you're winning, right? Like in baseball, if you're a superb batter, you're batting like 350, like you're that means you're failing like 65% of the time you're missing, right? Like,
That's right. Yeah.
it's super interesting there. And so my question is, how do you train? Like, one of my observations is that as an elite sportsman, one of the things you're training is that just by virtue of numbers, that comfort level with going, yep, I tried again, missed that one, missed that one, missed that one, missed that one. Yep, I had the 7th one that I was going for, or the 77th one that I was going for, whatever. I know you worked a bunch with Gilbert Anoka. I know you worked with Kerry Evans, both of these men, extraordinary men who I've had the privilege of having some chats with. What did you learn from them to support you in that piece of it?
I think Gilbert for me was the person who held me accountable. So we sat down. I talked about that honest look in the mirror when you go like, this is my area of strength, and this is where I'm not so good. So for me, it was, I bowled really fast and I swung the ball. So that was an easy one, but I wasn't really aerobically strong. I had to do a lot of hard work of running and doing all that sort of stuff. And Gilbert, I sat down and planned with Gilbert, okay, this is how we're going to go about doing this, and how every time I sit down with you, we're going to look at it, review it, tweak it. So we're never standing still. We're always trying to get better every time. So my training blocks and plans were never the same. And that's where for me, the confidence came from. Kerry actually was more, as a coach, I found it fascinating that that performance under pressure, the red head, blue head thing that I think's so interesting, and it's so true, that ability to cope with pressure, to stay clear, to stay on task. That's the next level for people in sport. That's what I'm trying to encourage my kids to understand, to think about, to have strategies and routines, and something you're trying to do as a coach too is to put those things in place. I think every player, doesn't matter how great they are, have moments where I call it the glaze came over. It certainly came over for me, and I think you can see it. People watch sport, they can see that look
What's
on
the
a
glaze? What does
person's
that?
face. It's
What does it
almost
mean?
like how would I mean? It's like the game. You're almost not thinking about what you're doing. You're not making good decisions. It's like the fight flight. You're almost in one of the two phases. You're either shutting down because, oh, this is overwhelming, or you're not thinking and just reacting with emotion. And I think you can go either way. For me, it was probably just, wow. It's definitely not a fight thing. It was, I don't think you're running away, but you don't realize that you've gone away from thinking about what you're doing to you're just going through the motions, and the game can unravel. So I think you're either focused on what might happen or what has happened, rather than bringing yourself back to what do I just need to do for this one ball, and if I can nail this, then I've just got to nail the next ball. And that's most of the battle, to be fair, at cricket at the elite level, is just getting people to focus on that one ball and what do I need to do right now. And as a batting team, you're trying to knock people off that, so they get into that state where they're thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to get hit for six, or I've just been hit for six. So yeah, that's what that was about. It was just bringing me back to myself, just to be focused on what I needed to do in that moment.
So much in there. I want to give a couple of shout outs. One to Gilbert Anoka, of course, absolute legend. His book Become Unstoppable has just come out, and I got my copy right here. Become Unstoppable.
Oh well, Gilbert's actually here working with England, and as it turned out, I was at my auntie's 70th birthday. Well, I think it was last Tuesday. So, I mean, Gilbert walked into the same restaurant. We ended up talking to each other for 20 minutes, which was great. So yeah, he is a legend of a man. He's got so much experience. I know you've worked in real estate with my sister, so he's obviously works across a whole range of industries. Yeah, I heard his book. He told me his book's going pretty good, so it should be. He's a very smart man. I
He's a
recommend
very
reading that
smart.
for sure.
I mean, what a gift! What a gift of a man. And I'll come back to him in just a moment, because one of the things he says relates to something you just said. The other is Kerry Evans, who, for those who don't know Kerry's work, his book is called Perform Under Pressure, and I think that's back here as well. And you
It's a
mentioned
great
the
book.
Redhead, a fantastic book. You mentioned Redhead, Bluehead, and Kerry's background as a forensic psychiatrist, and having worked with people who have been committed kind of the most extreme crimes, and understanding the mindset of what happens when we're under pressure is just so. He's been able to distill it and to bring it into a sporting arena or a business arena to help us understand what goes on with that glaze that you're describing. So powerful. Gilbert, you mentioned about just focusing on that one ball. And what I hear when I hear you describe the glaze, I hear I'm no longer present. I'm no longer aware of what's happening in this moment. And one of the things I've heard Gilbert talk about, he's talked about with me, is this premise of don't chase energy, chase momentum. And the way you chase momentum is by focusing on this moment and the next moment and the next moment, and then moment upon moment builds momentum. And so, what I'm hearing you talk about is these kind of strategies and tactics to go, how do I come back to this present moment, to this ball, not to the game or the trophy or the series, but this ball? This is what I need to work on right now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think there's so much can go on within sporting teams. You have, and from my own experience, obviously you've got the game itself. You've got that your own personal pride that you want to put in a good performance. So if it starts to unravel, you're dealing with that. You're dealing with, am I losing the game for my team? Am I now affecting my selection? Am I going to get dropped? There's so much noise around that can clutter your mind. And I think, with experience, you learn to cope with all the noise. Where for me, once I got to the top level and I became a really good player, the noise was irrelevant. And I carried that into my coaching job. Really, is one of my philosophies coming into coaching was I'm never coaching for my job. If I'm capable and I do my job properly, like at some point I'm probably going to get sacked or let go, but if I let all that worry overwhelm me, it's going to reflect and I'm going to get sacked anyway. So there's no point worrying about it. So I suppose that's the ability to park all the noise and just focus on something really simple, like bowling a cricket ball or hitting a cricket ball. Now, there's obviously a lot of work that goes in and you have to be able to practice that. And as I said, I'm talking about my own son, is just have a really simple game plan that you can lean on. So in those moments where it's tough, I've got this, I just know where I want to hit the ball. So if I do that and it doesn't work, it's okay. I tried to do what I wanted to do. And I think just those simple plans with a really clear task just makes it much easier than, thinking about all that the wider stuff that actually doesn't matter in that time.
Do you know what I love so much about what you just said is, and it is probably true for everything you've said on this conversation, but that thing about the noise, I think certainly and I imagine everyone listening, we don't have to be professional cricket players to understand that we can be in situations where there's a lot of noise in our head going, oh my gosh, what if I get fired? What if they hate the presentation? What if the date doesn't go well? What if, all those kinds of things. And so the kind of transferability of what you're talking about of going, actually, whatever I'm doing, whether it's fast bowling, whether it's doing a presentation to the boss, whether it's, coaching my kids team, whatever it is, I'm not going to do this based on the fear of it going badly. I'm going to go, yep, that might be some noise that exists, and I'm going to acknowledge it, set it to one side, and just stay focused on doing my job, which is to do the presentation or to be present to the date or whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
I think public speaking is probably the one people relate to. Most people hate public speaking. It's uncomfortable. You get up, you think everyone thinks, it's almost like you feel like everyone knows what's coming. And if you start to stumble, you start to think that everyone thinks you crap. It's a horrible one, and people tend to hate that public speaking. And I've done a little bit of public speaking and have been far more relaxed when going, well, no one knows what I'm going to say. As long as, again, I present and I come across like I know what I'm talking about. Some people are not going to like it, like they're not going to like you as a coach. Some people will, but I just have to let that go and just deliver the speech as best I can. It just makes it far, far more easy.
Do you have specific techniques that you use to put the noise aside, like a specific reset ritual or something you do with your body?
Yep, there used to be, I talk about this, something physical. I think it's always easier when you got something physical, and I think you see that a lot in cricket where people scratch a line at the crease if they're batting, or they'll grab a shirt. Just little cues like that. And I found that if I walk back and I just scratched a line on my mark, it was like almost drawing a line through something. So it's like, okay, that's the end of that. Now I've got to reset. And I think that physicality part to it's really important. And I do think it's something that, and cricket's a really interesting sport because most of our time when we train is in a net where there are no fielders. The game isn't actually trained like we play. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in the middle with these fielders everywhere. You're supposed to be in charge of them. And it can become quite overwhelming. So you still have got to have the ability to not just train your technique, you've got to be able to train your mindset in practice and try and put yourself into a game-like mode so that you're practicing those mental techniques. Otherwise, if it's like anything, if you don't practice it, then it won't. It's not just going to appear in the most pressurized moment. So you talk to your players a lot about, let's try and get into game mode. Let's think about where your field is. How are you going to react when you hit for four? What are the things you're going to do? How are you going to think? Who's someone who's there who can help you so you can just focus on that task. So, and I think all that confidence is helped by the hard work that you do. The purposeful training and stuff behind definitely helps, but I think the mental side is something you have to practice.
This thing of there's a physical piece to a reset, drawing a line or tugging on your shirt or whatever it is. Our minds are time travelers, but our bodies are always and only in the present moment. And so it's totally unsurprising to me that a ritual that you would have around bringing yourself back into the present involves something physical. I mean, there's the metaphorical, I'm drawing a line through that, but there's the physical, like, okay, where am I right now? I'm
Yep.
going to press my fingers together. I'm going to wiggle my toes, whatever it is, something to bring me back into this present moment. You mentioned about a few times about the observations you've made now that you're coaching. Talk to me about your entree into coaching and what you were like early in your coaching career and how that's kind of evolved.
Yeah, I always wanted to coach. I've always been a cricket watcher. Even as a kid, I just would sit all day and watch cricket. And so you start to listen to what they're saying and analyze. And as I played, it was sort of the onset of data and coming in, and I found it really fascinating and really enjoyed it. Obviously, having injuries too, then why was I getting injured was a big question for me. So as I was getting older, I was sort of going, look, I like helping people. I think there's certain things that can be done better, maybe around data and player management, and then how do I see the game? So it was sort of a natural. I had a philosophy that I wanted to bring in, and I wanted to coach, and then it's about then implementing that. I was probably like every other young coach comes in, you come a little bit hot and heavy. You think you know everything, but you don't. And so, you trial and error and you work things out. And I'm lucky I've been doing it for 15 years now. And then it's understanding yourself as a person. People would say I'm very direct, very black and white. And so you talked about empathy at the start, because I was a player, was so driven and focused. Not everybody's like that. So you have to, one of my goals for coaching is to soften and operate a little bit more in the grey. I think this generation too, you have to. I'm pretty calm and collected, but yeah, just softening in your approach, I think, is really important. So yeah, then it's just that the beauty of experience and time, and coaching's been no different. I've been really lucky. I've had 3 years with New Zealand, but I've done a lot of franchise coaching where I jump from team to team to team, and I've had the ability to go into an environment and go, actually, this is what I believe in, but I'm going to try this. It might not exactly, I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and I'm not going to do this time and see how this goes. And I think having done that a few times, it sort of brings you back to the stuff that you really believe in, that you want to be true to yourself. And so then you end up settling, like confirming that philosophy, still wanting to bump yourself out of it. And then the next question is, well, then how do you connect with people? Like, what are the things that are going to make a difference when I'm a 50-year-old from New Zealand who might be dealing with a 20-year-old from India or from wherever? So you've got this blend, and sort of settled on, there's a couple of things. You need to be capable of what you're doing as a coach. So if you're not capable and you don't have some expertise, then the players, like I would as a player, you're wasting my time. So you've got to be able to help me. So I found as a player, a lot of people, oh, he's a great player, so we won't coach him, we'll just leave him. And I found that frustrating. My best coaches challenged me and pushed me, because so that's been one of my philosophies. Doesn't matter how good you are, I'm going to try to find a way to make you better. I use humor. I'm a little bit of a joker, so I try to connect through humor, um, you know, taking the mickey out of people. And then just that care, just being consistent and caring, showing that you actually care about people. So I think if you're competent, you care about people, then they start to trust you. You use the humor to connect, and they know you're there to, even if you're delivering a strongish message to help them, then I think it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can connect. And that's where you have those great relationships with players all over the world.
Love that framework: capable, humor, and care. I want to pick up on your comment about coming in hot and heavy, and then one of your big lessons has been to soften. And I say this as someone who has been on a similar journey, and that's probably a life journey for me. I know my colleague Rach is on this call. She's probably nodding right now. So directly to the core of the reason for this podcast, because what I imagine everyone listening saying is, okay, but how do you soften while still being hungry and ambitious for the title or for the series or for whatever it is? How do you navigate that tension?
I think there's a couple of parts. So I came into the assistant coach's role so obviously as a new coach, you often sit as as assistant, but you'll have an opinion on how things should be doing, in the main job. And it's always nice to have that opinion. It's important to be valued, but it doesn't mean you're right. And I think it's only until you sit in that seat that you truly appreciate the pressures that come with it. So I think that's one thing when you're dealing with new coaches is, hey, you'll have your opinions and your ideas, but you're still figuring it out. So, even though you want to encourage people to go, well, then sit in that hot seat when all the pressure's on you, and then you'll find it's a very different perspective. And I think once you get that, I suppose, empathy for someone else's position, it makes a big difference. And actually, even if I do sit in that seat and I'm good at it, I still don't have all the answers. So I still need to take on board the opinions of all the people. Ultimately, you have to make a decision because you're accountable. The ability to allow people to be heard is really important as well. I think, and then it's it's a general effort. As black and white is what I'm like. It's like this, and it's just then just to go, actually, no, it's not like that. It's just I've got to take a step back and just operate a little bit more grey. So it doesn't necessarily, it can be like this, but it can also be like that. I'm the sort of person who I can probably go from 0 to 100 pretty quick, especially as a parent. My kids would tell you that I get grumpy real fast. My wife's the opposite end of the spectrum. She's so patient. So I suppose as parents, you end up going bang. That's the only thing we argue about is parenting. But I'm probably, I'm a lot more controlled in the coaching environment. I suppose your kids annoy you more than your players do, because you're so emotionally connected to them. You love them and you just want the best for them. Whereas the players, you care for them, but there's not so much of that emotion. So I would say I'm a far calmer and consistent coach. I'm a consistent parent. I just go from here to there real fast. So my kids end up taking the mickey out of me. So in terms of how do you soften, I think time allows you to soften, experience allows you to soften, watching others allows you to soften, becoming even more comfortable in your own skin. And I think as a coach, it's like being a player. I'm really clear about how I see the game, the things that are important to me, my philosophy. So it's really easy to be calm and consistent when you step into a role, when you've sort of got your own house in order. I think if you don't understand those things, then you can bounce. And that's when I think you can be a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. And I think because I've just developed this philosophy and idea and I'm really clear about it, just keeps me grounded, I suppose, to that. I've just got to focus on that. And it's almost like the players, that task thing.
Does softening mean you're less ambitious as a coach?
Absolutely not. No, like I want to coach my national team. I want to be a head coach. There's things I want to achieve as a coach. I think, I've sat in job interview. I missed the New Zealand coaching job this year. I've missed a number of jobs sitting in job interviews. It's frustrating. The same messages apply to me that I'm telling my kids. There's certain things that you don't control. Like you can control your preparation and the way you play, but you can't control selection. So that then I have to turn the mirror back on myself and go, I prepared for my interview. It went well. It's not my choice. And so then, okay, how do I go about improving what I'm doing? Now, that doesn't take away the drive. It's one of my key foundations has always been, I've got to go and be authentic. I don't want to tell people in an interview what I want them to hear. I'm just going to tell them what I am. I am direct. I want to win. I will challenge players. This is how I see the game being played, all that. And if they want that, then they'll take it. If they don't, then they won't. And that's fine, because I want to be an authentic coach. It's served me well. And then the other part is I'm not going to coach for my job. I always believe that if I have expertise and I'm capable, my reputation will go ahead of me anyway. So people will know that I'm a person who's capable of doing a job for them. And I think even with young coaches now, I see them coaching school cricket here, and you can see them, they're so wound up about results. And I keep saying, don't worry about the results. Like if you're organized and you're positive, people will know you're a good coach. The results won't matter. You will keep your job. And if you don't, you'll get another one but if you get too intense or start stressing, that follows you as well. And then you won't get work. And that's what you don't want to have happen.
I want to summarize what I'm hearing you say, because it is so crucial to the core premise of these conversations, which is that your softening was not because you were less interested in achievement, but because you were interested in being more effective as a coach. And your observation, if I'm understanding you correctly, your observation was that you were more effective when you could be calmer, create more space for people to be heard, and that could potentially allow for greater outcomes.
Definitely. And I think it's that same thing too as a coach, where you go, this is the way it's done. There are many ways in which it's done. And one of the things I've been lucky enough to be able to do is step outside that and try some stuff. So you go, okay, actually, there's a whole range of things that work and a whole range of things that work for different people. And what I do here might not actually work for this environment. There's some core things that run through it, but on the periphery, there's certainly some things that can change. So I think that's the big one. I'm no less driven. There's no doubt about that. I'm very driven, and I'm in the game. The coaching is about helping players get better and to win. Like I want to win every time because that's where the fun is you spend all this hours and time you want to win. But that doesn't mean you can't be empathetic or caring, and caring can look like challenging or having an honest conversation. And that's as much as caring as it is to say well played today. So I think that's the thing of a coach sometimes these days is nobody wants to upset anybody. So we better not say anything that might be construed as criticism. I'll just be super positive. I just don't think you can have one side of that equation. I think you have to show a genuine care, which is a genuine care, as said, is worried about the person and interested in their family, but genuine care also means I've got to help this person get better. And then that often involves maybe a little bit of confrontation or a conversation that might be a little bit uncomfortable.
You are singing my song, Shane. I mean, seriously, like, so there's a piece there of like the thing that allows me to challenge you, to push you, to encourage you, to get you outside your comfort zone is that you know that I care for you. That is, the care is the basis. And this is the thing. It's like, I've had so many conversations with people go, well, you can care, but there has to be a balance because the myth that we carry about care is that I'm not going to challenge you. I'm just going to be
Yes.
nice to you. I'm only going to be positive. I'm not going to say anything that might upset you. And the version of care that I am so obsessed with putting out into the world is the kind of care that, Gilbert says, we need connection strong enough to hold tension. The kind of care that is strong enough for me to go, you know what? The way you're performing right now, that's not going to cut it. If this is
Yeah.
your ambition, you're not going to get there doing it this way. You're going to have to do something else. Yeah. And so I just love what you're saying about this premise of going, actually, care is not, I'm not going to speak up. It's not, I'm only going to say nice things. It's, I'm going to say nice things when they're warranted, and I'm going to challenge you when it's warranted.
And you try to make, I always say to my players at the start of any campaign, it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. If there's things that I'm doing that you don't like, then you need to tell me and don't be afraid to tell me. Like I have to take it on the chin as much as I tell you. And that's really important. I think the other thing is a coach and you realize that you always want to have an impact, but that impact might not be immediate. So you may offer something, and I'll say this to the players, I will tell you what I see and what I think. It's up to you whether you want to action that or not, and that lies with you. I believe what I'm saying. There's been times where I've told certain players something that's taken them 2 years to get round to actually doing, because I'm always a believer that failure will then initiate change at some point. If it doesn't, they'll probably be dropped, or they'll get to a point and they go, I've got to do something different here. And then they'll come back to you and go, well, what were you talking about there? So it's the ability to offer something and then not expecting people to go, yes, it's right, boom, boom. And I think that's really important as well.
Again, it speaks to a kind of core philosophy that I have, which is that we are always and only accountable for ourselves. So as a coach, you're accountable for how you show up, how you communicate, your ability to read what your players need, et cetera. They're accountable for, do they make the change that you're suggesting to them, or do they want to put in the kind of work that you're saying is necessary? We're always and only accountable for ourselves.
Yep. And because the players these days have heaps of coaches who all have an input. And so you're also going as a coach, look, you're going to have heaps of input. Take from it what you want, and ultimately you have to make a decision based on that. And I suppose as a coach, then you've got to remove your own ego that I'm the answer, I'm this fountain of knowledge that everyone should listen to. I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I know that I'm going to have stronger connections with some players than others. Some people will listen more than others. That's okay. But as long as I'm consistent in the way I behave and the feedback that I give and the messages and how I react and act around those players, I think that gets respect, and that's important. Not that respect is a big one.
I love it. Your players are so lucky to have you. Just before we sign off, I understand that your mom gave you a mantra, or there were a couple of things that she would like hammer into you. Am I making this up? Is this something that's front of mind for you? Or I
No,
heard
not
you talk
really.
about it. I heard you talk about in another interview. We talked about your mom saying, work hard, be a good person, tell the truth.
Yeah, they were things that my parents brought up. Yeah, my mum. It's interesting because if I didn't do jobs around the house, I would have got my backside kicked. It was more just about being a good person, really. Just just treat people with respect and Those messages that you hear as a kid, they sort of go in out in one ear out the other. But then as you get older, they sort of feel they've got this embedding, much like my mum's music. I used to hate it as a kid, and now it's all the stuff that I play now because it's ingrained in my mind. So, yeah, ultimately, I'm really lucky. I'm in a people industry. I've got all these friends and from around the world. I think connection is important for your own mental health. I think it's just, there's people can get lonely. I'm lucky I'm not like that because I've got wherever I go in the world, I've got people I can pick the phone up or go and spend some time with. And the cricket's a great game like that. So I think, yeah, and I'm really lucky because I've been working in a game where 99% of the people are fantastic. So it's easy because you're just dealing with good people. And yeah, as long as if you're a good person, as said, then I think that's important as well.
Connection, like this thing of how much we need connection, it is literally life and death. It's not a, fluffy thing or a thing we need because we're weak. We evolved as a social species. And one of my observations is that so much of what we do is really just excuses to connect. And
Mm.
sport it's just an excuse. It's a vehicle that lets us show up for each other, push ourselves, connect in a way that we wouldn't otherwise have the space or the permission to do. And I'm so delighted that your experience has been that it's created that opportunity for connection for you and that you're creating that space for the players that you're coaching.
Yeah, and that's not to say I don't like my time out because I know my energy. I'm bit of an introvert, so I like to have time on my own. But there's something about being around other people. There's something about seeing them have success that I love. Like you're part of a team, you feel that team energy. You see people have success. You're part of that. You share that experience. It's pretty unique. It's not just in sport, but it's when you have it. It's pretty cool. So that's I think it keeps you young, keeps you energized, and it keeps wanting you to be part of that because, as I said, it might be tough, but it's where the fun is.
Amazing. Shane, that's a perfect place for us to finish our conversation on. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I've taken so much away from this conversation, and I'm so excited to share it with the world.
No, my pleasure. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you so much for listening. I so enjoyed talking to Shane. I loved how down to earth he was while simultaneously clearly being hugely ambitious. I love the way he seems to have matured over time, like his insight and his wisdom really came through for me. And I love the clarity he's bringing to his coaching career. Those players are lucky to have him. Thanks again. Please do let me know your feedback. You can reach me on hello@kylakolbin.com. And please, if you are enjoying the podcast, subscribe, follow, hit that notification bell. All of those things help me bring you better guests and better episodes. Thanks again. See you next week. Huge thanks to Celebrity Speakers for your support of this episode. If you would like to book Shane and have him inspire your audience with his wisdom, insight, and experience, Celebrity Speakers are the folks to reach out to. Hunger and Heart is brought to you by the Crusaders Leadership Program. Whether you're coaching under fives or a professional team, we all want the same thing: to build a culture of trust, to get the best out of your people, and to grow players into leaders. The Crusaders Leadership Program lets you get up close and personal with some of the greatest rugby legends of all time. People like Sir Wayne Smith, Sam Whitelock, Kieran Reid. You'll connect with a global group of ambitious, caring coaches from a range of codes and backgrounds. And most importantly, you'll gain skills and techniques to drive impact and outcomes for your team. The Crusaders Leadership Program is a 2-week, high-intensity virtual experience. It is delivered exclusively online, accessible from anywhere. Hunger and Heart listeners get 10% off the full price of the program. Use the code HUNGER at checkout. You can find out more about the Crusaders Leadership Program at crusadersleadership.com. That's crusadersleadership.com. Hunger and Heart is created by BOMA and the entire BOMA team, including Tito Bernal, Ray Jangle, Hannah Hudson, Johanna Coxon, Sunil Unka, and me, Kyla Colbin. Thanks for listening.